Hey everyone, it's Mrs. Brimlow, and today I'd like to finish the notes we started yesterday. So, yesterday we started working with solving equations with square roots and cube roots where they were perfect squares and perfect cubes. So, if you have these notes and can take them out to finish them, great. If not, you can watch the video and check out the link posted on the weekly syllabus, or if you have it yourself later on. Okay. So, we did examples 1 and 2 yesterday, working with, once again, perfect squares and perfect cubes. We're going to flip to the back and we're going to finish with example 3. Okay. So example 3 is working with imperfect squares and cubes. So how do we do that? Okay. So we're going to solve for x in each of these examples, starting with example A. So as we discussed yesterday, whenever we're solving an equation, it doesn't matter what type, we use inverse operations to work backwards algebraically. Okay? So we saw that the opposite of squaring a number or inverse is to take the square root. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. Okay? So this is going to leave me with x. However, 50 is not a perfect square. Now, we did learn how to estimate, but unless it asks you to do that specifically, if it says estimate, approximate, about how much, then you'd want to. But if it doesn't, then you don't have to, okay? So we know that x is going to be either the positive or negative square root of 50. So this symbol right here means positive or negative. So why does this have two answers? Technically, all square roots have two different answers to them, okay? So let's say I use the square root of 25. I'm going to do this down at the bottom. Let's look at the square root of 25 for a second, okay? We know that it's 5, and that's because 5 times 5 is 25, right? What if I told you the square root of 25 is also negative 5? So using the same logic as before, if I multiply negative 5 and negative 5 by itself, I do get 25. Now, in most problems, especially real world problems, we only talk about the positive answer. And if they wanted you to give the negative answer, they typically put a negative sign out front. Okay. But for every square root, perfect square root, or even imperfect square root, they technically have two square roots, positive or negative. So if I asked you for the two square roots of 16, you would say it's positive and negative 4, because 4 times 4 is 16, but so is negative 4 times negative 4. Okay. So far we've really only focused on the positive because, once again, when we're talking word problems, 98% of the time you're going to use the positive answer. However, they do have two. Okay. And typically, as I was starting to say, they'll put the negative sign in front of the square root if that's what they want for an answer. Okay. Because we're not giving a specific answer here, we're just leaving it in the square root form, we would put the positive negative sign in front of it, working with square roots only. Okay, so I'm just going to make that note. Only applies to square roots. Because as we learned in our previous lesson, when we're working with cube roots are either positive or negative, because we can take the cube root of a negative number. We cannot take the square root of a negative number, but we can take the cube root of a negative number. So they want us to take the cube root of 37 in order to figure out what x is. Now, 37 is not a perfect cube, so we leave it like this. But once again, we don't put plus or minus in front because it has to be positive. If they wanted it to be negative, they would have said negative 37. Okay. So now that we have finished these notes, you'll be able to complete the practice in your workbook or whatever has been listed in Canvas. If you have any questions, please reach out and I will chat with you soon.